Hi there, my name's Vince from My Mate Vince, and in this video today we're going to try to fix up these three Kingston 32GB little thumb drives here. So all three of them are faulty. I got them from Lee, the same guy that sent over the Kingston SSD, and I wasn't successful on that, but the video was viewed many times and I think people quite enjoyed it. Anyway, it says here 3 flash drives either won't read or won't format. I have tried different computers and software, but nothing seems to work. Now, I've tried plugging them into here, and every time I plug them in, it comes up with, to format it, but when I go to format it, it will fail. So if I go to format disk, I tried doing it on NTFC, FAT32 and exFAT, but let's go to FAT32 and try to do here, and it will just come up with failed after a little while. But one of them does say read only, so maybe we can go into command prompt and change it away from read only, and maybe one of them can be fixed, and maybe the other two we'll take apart. We'll see if there's anything obvious on the inside. Actually, while we're doing this, okay, it says Windows 1 was unable to complete the formatting. So that's what happened on the other one as well, and the other one came up with read only. So I'll tell you what, let's, I better talk about the elephant in the room, and that is my finger. So the patrons already know about this because I did a 15-minute video on it, how it happens. But basically, it didn't happen while working on my Rolls-Royce car. It didn't happen while doing anything fancy on Brian's boat. It didn't happen when I was even doing a trying to fix video. It happened, believe it or not, walking into a restaurant. I opened the door, it was a sprung-loaded door. I went to stop the door from, banging shut, and it was coming back a lot quicker than I thought, and basically it managed to trap my finger here between the door frame and the door, and basically it sliced it off just through here, but not all the way, 3/4 of the way through, including breaking the bone. So it was pretty bad, a lot of blood. Yes, I managed to faint shortly after that as well. I'm not going to show you the pictures because I'll get done for gore on YouTube. Anyway, let me show you the x-ray one because that isn't gory. And you can see here that this is the nail sticking up, the whole front part of it basically levered up, and you can see the break here. So it was a bit of a mess. I'll show you that repaired, did a real good job. Eventually I had to go to a plastic surgeon that night. The triage nurse couldn't deal with it, the doctor couldn't deal with it. They gave it to a plastic surgeon because it was such a mess. But anyway, done a real good job. The guy was only in his, I'd say, mid to late 20s. But yeah, he did a lovely job. I presume I've lost my nail. I don't think that's my nail anymore unless it's full of blood underneath it. And well, it can't be my nail because there's stitches there. And you can see it's stitched right the way across. So it was a right mess. Annoyingly, it means I'm going to struggle to do fix-it videos for a little while because anytime I kind of move my hand, I can kind of feel it pulling and stuff, but something like this is going to be fine. Anyway, right, it says Windows can't format D, and it says check see if the disk and drive are connected properly to make sure the disk is not read-only. So let's do that now. Let's go into CMD, and let's go to disk parts. Let me just zoom in a little bit. Right, let's go to list disks. Right, so it hasn't come up at all, has it? Right, let's unplug that. I wonder, can I plug it in here, or do I have to go in it again? Here we go, it's here. Right, so disk 1, 28GB, and now I need to go to, what do I need to do now? Select disk 1. That's the selected disk, so now attributes of that disk. Right, so you can see here that the read-only state, it's not on read-only state. So I'm presuming that should just work. Okay, so let's get rid of that one. Let's plug in another one. I'm wondering if one of these can be fixed just by doing this. No, read-only state, no. No, 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 no. So I don't think that's, I think that's the same as the last one. Right, current read-only state, yes. So this one is in a read-only state. So let's delete that one. I might have to look this up. Attribute disk clear read-only. Right, disk attribute cleared successfully. So now let's go to attribute disk. No, it still says read only state yes. Do I have to unplug it and plug it in again, I wonder? No, it still says read only the yes. Let me just Google how to do that. I thought that's how you clear it, but maybe I did it wrong. Bear with me. Apparently you can do it in disk management. So right click, disk management, and here, right, removable drive, read only. So let's go to right click, properties, sharing, advanced sharing, permissions. Here we go, full control. Right, apply that. Okay, to apply there. Okay, close. Now let's see if we do the command prompt again and see what comes up now. No, it still says read only yes. Hold on 1 second. Let's go back to here. Read only. Try to format it and see what happens. Well, actually, make sure there's nothing in it. This folder is empty. Imagine if I had a load of Bitcoin on there. The disk is write protected. Right, okay, so that's kind of weird. Do you know what? Let's see if there's a hardware fault on it. Should I bother doing the last one? Well, do you know what? It didn't format earlier. So let me shut this down. Let's open them up and let's see what's happening on the inside. So looking closely, there's a little line going across here, but we've definitely got this big kind of plastic thing that doesn't look like it's connected to the rest. So let's see if it will pry out from here. Yes, it will. Excellent. Right, there's very little to it, but there is some caps on there. Let's take them all out. So what I didn't know, and I was told on the last video about the SSD that I did, is that it's a bit dodgy to save really important data to SSDs because they only have a certain amount of read-write cycles. So they're saying important data should really be kept on an actual hard disk drive, you know, because there's a spinning disk inside there. So maybe they're designed to last for longer. So these are really good for kind of booting up Windows and stuff like that, where you need speed, but not for important data. That's what I was told anyway. That's really hurting just doing that. Looks like the USB 3. Right, well, I can't see anything obvious. Let's zoom right in. So I presume they're both populated if you were to go for maybe the 64GB one. So there's a slightly different layout between them. Can you see? So again, I would say, I'm going to take a guess that this here has failed. Does it look burnt? Slightly discoloured just at the bottom, that corner there. Let's see, is it the same on the others? No. And no. Right, let's check for shorts on the caps. Right, no shorts there. No shorts there. Right, annoyingly, there's no shorts on the cap, so I think this is going to be another failure video. Oh, look at that one. That's the sort of options for BGA and for the legs on either side, while these are just legs on either side. So I think I'm going to have to go over to Google because, well, I'll tell you what, let's just check the resistors. There's a few resistors here. Let's see what they're measuring. just in case one of them might be open. Right, so those ones are like a full short. So's that one, and that one, and that one. So they're okay. Let's check the others. So that's 5,000 ohms. Okay, 4.7 thousand I should say. 10,000 ohms, 10,000 ohms. So they're the ones that are identical. Any resistors on that side? No. So they're all testing okay as far as the components are concerned. Obviously, I can't check that chip or that chip there. Let's just see what's happening here. And on that one, there's only the one resistor there. So, yeah, let me check on Google, but it's not looking promising. This one here is really interesting. This is online as Tech Tips, and it's XVIP, and it says here, some storage devices have a lockdown system that kicks in once the flash is no longer safe to write to. What you experience, which is what I'm experiencing, is most likely this. It allows you to copy all your files off the drive without degrading it further and possibly losing important files before, in some cases, shutting off completely. The thing is though, if the drive's failing, it's not safe to use anyway. But that is interesting if it does that, if it's got like a lockdown system that kicks in once it knows that the flash is no longer safe to write to. I think that's really interesting. Right, so annoyingly, it looks like these drives have probably just reached the end of their life, but I don't want to give up on them yet. I want to still see if I can somehow format them or change them away from read-only. And also, I want to see what data's on there. Can we retrieve any data from there? Because when we go into File Explorer, there's nothing there at all. They're empty. But can we use a data recovery software to try to get some data back? So let's look into those options now. Okay, so I've tried to get rid of the write protect by going into the registry editor, so regedit.exe, and it's not coming up. You know, it's not coming up with the write protect here, so I can't change it from a 0 to a 1 or a 1 to a 0 because it's not here to change. So I'm not having much luck trying to get rid of the write protect, the read only on these thumb drives, or I can't format them either. So let's forget about that, and let's try to do data recovery and see if we can find out what sort of data is on these drives. Okay, so I've plugged it into my main PC and I've had it in here for about 45 minutes now, and I used disk drill to get the information from it. And I mean, it's just slightly warm. It hasn't got the case on it or anything, but it's just ever so slightly warm. It doesn't feel like it's burning hot. Out of all of the three of them, that was the first one I've tried. That was the one with the BGA ones on the underneath, so I would presume that's a newer one. If you have a look here, this is disk drill, and sure enough, it's picked up 4 movies and also 1 document. Document I can't get into, and these ones look like they're mostly from, I think it was Netflix. So we've got Army of the Dead, Centigrade, Fear Street Part 1, and News of the World, and they are all playing. So if I was to go over here and press play, you will see that they are working. So I don't know whether, for example, this, is the issue the fact that it's only read-only, because when I go to dashboard, it's also coming up here with, where was it now? Was it here? Oh, I think it was the page before that. Well, anyway, it came up with read-only on here, and when I tried to change it to, read and write or whatever it was, then it wasn't changing. It still came up as read-only. So I suppose that could signify maybe, would that be a fault with the controller, or has it been set that way? So I'm quite happy to format this one because there's only 4 films on it, and document, I don't know what it is anyway. So I'm going to try different ways to format it. There might be another way of doing it. So I'm going to try it with all 3 of them. I'm also going to scan these 2 as well and see if there's anything interesting on there. And then it's quite interesting actually to see what is on there. It's quite exciting. So sad, I know. And then obviously if there's nothing important there, then I'll try to format all 3 of them. I think this is going to be a failure video, but at least it shows that you can still get data back from it, even if you can't get it by just using File Explorer. So this is where things like disk drill and other programs like this, I suppose, would work really well, because you can see that they have recovered the 4 things here. I presume if I was to actually go through further into this, then I would have to pay, but at least it lets me preview the files to see what's there. So leave it with me for a bit. Right, so I've scanned another one, and this one's full. What's interesting is they're 32 gigabytes, aren't they? Yet it found 50 gigabytes of data, because I suppose it's finding all the lost stuff as well, which is kind of amazing how it can find that. Do you know what I mean? You wouldn't think it'd be able to pull it back 50 gigabytes out of a 32 gigabyte card. Very, very odd. Anyway, this one here is very strange. So basically, it just seems to be loads of like driving licenses and passports and stuff from, I think it's Pakistan. So yeah, really, really odd what's going on here. It's got just so much data on here. Invoices, it's got everything. It shows you how important it is, if the data is important to you, to destroy stuff like this, because you see, you plug it into a program like this and it's picked up 50 gigabytes of information from some, I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's some sort of government agency thing. I don't know why there's so many pictures of driving licenses and passports. There seems to be absolutely loads. Or whether it's some sort of accountancy firm or something. I don't know, but there's an awful lot of information here. So quite intrigued to see what's on the last one now. Right, so looking online, basically, it just means that the drives are failed. So if you look at this response here, this one says, why is my USB flash drive now read-only? And look at this response here. It says, the drive is going bad. I've seen this happen to USB flash drives before. They are only temporarily good for storage and you have to keep them backed up. Also, it is marked with write protection, even though there are no registry entries causing that to be so. So, yeah, basically the drives have failed. I mean, maybe these have been written to for years and years and years. That one that came from Pakistan, I've seen dates on that going all the way back to 2016, I think it was. So, yeah, maybe they've just been used loads and maybe now their time is up. They only have so many read and write cycles. So, what I'm going to do is have a little bit of fun, because we have one of them which isn't reading anything at all. When I plug it in, it's not doing anything. So what I might try to do is, I might try to swap the controller from the other one. So it's going to be the Pakistani one. I'm going to take the controller off that one and put it onto the one that's not reading at all, just to see whether the data recovery software can find anything of that. So these drives will not work again, but it's still interesting to know that you can get your data back when it seems very easy to get back when you use those data recovery programs. So yeah, it's pretty interesting. Okay, so it's the next day now and I'm about to try and swap the chips over. So I've got the faulty drive in at the moment and you can see it's not coming up as disk 3 here, and also it's not coming up on the drill disk, it's not listed here. But yet if I unplug it and then plug it back in again, it will show up here initially, but then it will never show up on the disk drill, and then it will just sort of disconnect and it won't show up here either. So right now it's here, you can see disk 3, but yet if I go to disk drill it will say updating disk down here, but it will never come up here. And I'll just fast forward through it, because after a bit it would just come up with a noise and then it would disconnect. In fact, let's go to here at the same time. There you go, gone. So yeah, let's swap the chips over and see if it behaves the same. Okay, so let's just recap so I know what's clear. Now, the one with the BGA, this is the one with the videos on. This is actually a slightly different layout and a different chip than these two here. These two here are identical. So, with this one here, we just know that the movies are on here and we're able to retrieve them if we so wanted. So I'm going to leave that one to one side. I'm just going to put it down to the fact that it's reached the end of its life. It's probably been used a lot. If there was a capacitor that was shorted or something like that, then great, we could have removed that and the drive would live on. But I presume this chip here has reached the end of its life cycle. So we're forgetting about that one. This is what we're dealing with here. So this is the Pakistan one that's got about 50 gigs of data when you put it into the actual recovery software. There's nothing dodgy going on here. I've looked up the company and they are online university. They're like a thing that sets up students with an online, you know, the Open University. So yeah, that's about. And most of this seems to be data from 2015, 2016. So now we don't know what's on this one because this is the one that I can't get anything from. So let's say if this was really important, is it possible to get it back? So what I'm going to do is I am going to swap the chips over, and that way then we're going to have the Pakistan one working on this one here. We then know that it is possible just to change over the main chip here and keep the controller chip. If it doesn't work, then it will either mean that this chip is faulty, but then when we put this one onto here, it should then work, shouldn't it? Because it's got this controller chip. If both of them don't work, then we know that you can't swap the chips over, that they're interlinked somehow to the control chip. But yeah, that's what we're going to do. So rather than messing with the other things, I'm just going to swap over these main ones here. Now, heat apparently will kill the data from these chips. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my microscope out. It's super fine, the pitch on here, but I'm going to use low melt solder and a soldering iron. Hopefully then that will allow me to remove them. So yeah, this is just exciting, just to see what's going to happen. You know, can we get the data back off here? That's what this video is going to be about now. Right, so let's add a little bit of flux to this. And let's see if low melt solder will do the job. I've just got it stuck down here with a big lump of blue tack so it doesn't wobble off anywhere. Okay, here we go. So with the low melt solder and the soldering iron, I'm hoping the heat isn't really going to travel into the chip much, so it should be okay. Now, because the low melt solder doesn't have flux in, you need to have quite a bit of flux on it. One second, I'm just going to get my fan set up. So unfortunately, fan equals noise. Let me just talk you through what's going on here. So obviously, flux has been added. I'm just adding a load of low melt solder onto it, and this will reduce the temperature right down. So in theory, I should be able to take it off with just a soldering iron. For some reason on this one, I struggled. Maybe I didn't put enough low melt solder on, but I did have to actually use a little bit of hot air. But as soon as I put the hot air wand on it, it just came off instantly. So I'm pretty sure no damage was done to the chip, because I think it must have been almost there with the low melt solder anyway. Obviously doing this, I also knocked a couple of capacitors off, which is going to happen when you're using the low melt solder when they're so close to the actual legs of the chip. But it's not a problem because I found them, and I could take them off. I seen that they were covered in low melt solder. Now I'm cleaning up with some braid now and making it nice and clean, and now we have to do the same on the other thumb drive as well. So get the chip off that one and swap them both over. While we're doing this, let's give a shout out to the My Mate Vince Massive. And this month the members are kitsdigital.com, Kip Hakes, Max Rokotansky, Having Fun Repairs, Will Michaelis, Chris Seal, Felipe at MrKeebs.com, DJ VG, Pigsy, Robert from Timsy's Auto Air, Daniel Watson, Zeeks C, Anthony Dean, Bazza2, Operational 117, Russ Melanson, and Save Our Stuff. So massive thanks to all of you and everybody over on Patreon and everyone that supports these videos in whichever way you do. So now, got the other one off. Now I'm going to put it back on with the soldering iron. So what I'm going to do is basically I have to just clean up the legs, because obviously this low melt solder kind of gets everywhere, but it comes off such a treat, like a real treat when you're using the solder wick. And I'm just removing some of the remnants of the blue tack as well. So when we put the chip back on, obviously there's quite a few pins. I know it doesn't look like there is, but there actually is. So we're going to attach them at corners, because sometimes the chip can go a little bit astray. So if you attach it on the right hand bottom corner and then the top hand left corner, or bottom right and top, whatever. If you attach it at the corners, then you see the chip is in place, it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm just making sure it's all lined up nice, and then I'm going to add a little bit of leaded solder to the corners, and then we can do a little bit of a drag soldering, so we can get the flux out and try to do a bit of drag soldering across. And then if I end up with a kind of pull at one side, because I'm always a little bit heavy-handed on the solder, then we can just use a little bit of wick to get the bit away from the corner. So yeah, to be fair, it went on nice, and it's a nice, I don't know, it felt nice doing this because you can kind of see the legs, you know what's going on, the legs aren't hidden underneath it. It was actually quite nice to work on. I'm quite happy with the end result. That is it. I'm just going to show you a little bit in real time what the both chips look like at the ends, and then we can plug them into the computer and we'll see what's happening. Let's see now. Are we suddenly now going to have data on the one that we couldn't even get to stay on before? or is the Pakistani Open University one still going to work perfectly and we're still going to have a failed thumb drive on the other one? Right now I'm just going across each leg and just making sure that there's no ones that are left unsoldered. So yeah, let me just show you it after it's all been cleaned up and all looking nice. Okay, and that's the other one done now, and as you can see they're all soldered on there. That one went easier than the other one. I suppose the tip is not to put too much solder on your iron. It's always tempting to put too much on, but that was okay, that one. I just had a tiny bit of wick here and a tiny bit of wick, I think it was this side here. So when I went across, the only two pins that bridge were those ones and those ones there, the ends where you drag the solder. Annoyingly, one of my capacitors has gone missing. I don't know, definitely put it down, but when I look in the place where I put it down, it's definitely not there now, so I'm not quite sure what happened to that. But anyway, it should work fine without that one up there. That shouldn't make a difference. So now, let's plug them both in, and let's see now if the Open University files have moved on to this one here, and whether or not we have any data on this one here. I'm quite intrigued to find out what's happening. Interesting, so we've got the Open University one plugged in, and now, look here, it's come up here. So it wasn't... it mustn't be the actual, it must be the main chip itself, but we don't know that yet. I just want to verify it, so I'm just going to click on here. So it mustn't be the board or the controller chip. Search for lost data. I'm not going to let it go all the way through, I'm just going to let it go for a bit. In fact, on this one, from memory, they come up really, really quick because there's so much on it. Yeah, there we go, okay. And let's just go on to one of the pictures. Okay, yeah, we got something there. A few more things drop in. So it looks like the controller chip is okay. Isn't it amazing that you can get everything back from here? There you go, and back to kind of passports and documents and stuff like that. Right, okay, now let's plug in this fella here, and let's see now whether we can get any data off this one. I think the answer is going to be no. Right, okay, so this is the one that we haven't got any data off yet. Let's see now if we can get anything off this drill. Nah, see, it's not there already. No, it's the same thing. This is what happens. It takes forever now, and then it will just come up with the 3 drives. While we're doing this, let's go to disk management. Also takes longer to come up on here as well. So in this instance here, you wouldn't be able to easily get the data off yourself. Again, a professional would, I'm sure, be able to do it. Or maybe not. Maybe if the main chip is gone. I don't know. Maybe that's one for the comment section. If it's the main storage chip that's gone, I'm sure they will be able to do it anyway. Anyway, so look, it came up there, and you wouldn't have seen it, but it came up with 4 for a second, and then it drops to 3. But it's so quick, I can't even see what the 4th one is. But yeah, you see, it's not there at all. So I'm going to just unplug it. I'm not going to, go to, like where you unmount the USB. I am just unplugging it and plugging it back in, which is not ideal. Right, so yeah, you can see it's there, but then after a minute or so it will disappear and it won't ever come up here. You'll just see, if I keep the camera here, you'll see it would disappear from here when it makes a noise. Just before that it will go to 4 here, and then it will drop down to 3. Right, gone there, 4, and then it's gone. So it goes from here, then it comes up with 4, and then it goes back to 3 again. Yeah, right, let's finish up. You've suffered long enough, my friends. And relax, soothe those eyes. Now I've put them all back together. You might wonder why. It's so I can sell them untested on eBay, of course. That's what everyone else does, isn't it? Anyway, it's a failure video. I started off with them not working, and they're still not working at the end. But I've learnt along the way. Hopefully some of you may have learnt the same things as me, which is basically, don't put important data. I mean, obviously things like this, you're using that for the form factor. But when it comes to SSDs in your computer or external drives, that just stay at home, maybe don't get SSDs. Get SSDs for speed. So if you want to put your operating system on there, great. But when it comes to important data, maybe keep it on the older discs, the actual hard drive discs, the ones that spin up, because I think, I could be wrong, but I think I read on Google that you can write to them like forever. While with these, there's a read and write limit to what you can do, and it said average use 5 to 7 years, and then they reach the end of their life and then they go read-only as a way to protect the data on there. So one of them has gone read-only, the other two haven't, but they all seem to be sort of displaying the same thing where you can't format them, you can't do anything. It's like they've shut themselves down. But at least on two of them you can get the data back. So a lot of people wouldn't know that. They'd plug it into their computer, File Explorer, nothing there. Maybe bring it into work, plug it into that computer, still nothing there, and then just assume that that's it, nothing you can do. Obviously, if it was important, they would look into data recovery, but a lot of people would be put off by the price. But if you can do it yourself at home, you've seen on this that two of them, it looks like you could have got the data back. 4 films that I could actually watch, and 50 gigabytes of information on the other one. So yeah, to me, that's interesting. Also, what's interesting is, why was there 50 gigabytes on a 32 gigabyte? I have been told that they lie and they actually have a little bit more. So when there's problems, they can lock that section, lock different things away, and you've still got 32 gigabytes to work with. But 50 gigabytes seems a lot. And as far as I know, when you delete something, it can still be recovered by these programs as long as you don't overwrite it. So has 50 gigabytes really not been written over? I found that really interesting. So although it was a failure, I still enjoyed it. Massive thanks to Lee for sending it out to me, and also the other SSD as well. Whether I'm going to get more on eBay, I presume they've probably all reached the end of their life, so there's not much point. It would be nice to get one that doesn't work at all, because maybe that would be a faulty capacitor. I think, yeah, but do you know what? The whole data recovery thing, for me, I've quite enjoyed it, and it's something that I would like to maybe look into a little bit more in the future as time goes on. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a massive thumbs up. Hopefully next time I would actually fix something. I don't always fail, I promise. If you're new to my channel, sometimes I do fix stuff, but I do show failures as well. So yeah, massive thanks to Lee again for sending them out, and I will see you all very, very soon. Take care, everyone.